Hi, this is Mike of Need Enough Dice, and this is the Kerbal Space Program. This is just a quick montage of some missions that I've done. This is a space tourist mission, so this is the redesigned suborbital space taxi. So this is Mark III. Put some fairings on, but mostly the biggest change I found was in reducing the throttle of the main boosters. Balances out the whole rocket amazingly well. It actually, because I started off with a thruster ratio of like 2 or something, and I was able to bring it back to 1.5. And that meant the upper stage also had a much better thruster weight ratio of about 1.5. And I also put an action group in for deploying the fairings, because someone on Reddit said that 20k is the best time to do that. So this is actually quite a nice launch and ascent profile. Precisely because I've just by rebalancing those side boosters, those solid rocket boosters, that was run brilliantly. So obviously just adjusting maneuver nodes to circularize, because all these guys, all these tourists, there's 4 of them, they want to orbit. They want to go suborbital and orbit. And of course, conveniently, you have to go suborbital in order to orbit. So that's them all going, we went to suborbit, woo! So then I circularize and complete circularization, and then they're all happy. Look at that, and that's brilliant. That's that mission. That's actually 2 tourist missions done at once, which is rather swish. And it's all about where am I gonna land? And the 2 things were, I want to land on the day side, absolutely, definitely. And for some reason, I decided I really wanted to land in the desert, because I never go to the desert. I don't know why I sing this, because these guys aren't scientists. They can't give me a crew report or anything like that. But meh, doesn't matter. Look at them. They're so happy. They are so happy in there. And so there you go. That's all it took to deorbit. And so that was my, this plane is now going down. There's no 2 ways about it. They're still happy. Look at the view, lovely view. And then eventually I'll work out I can look at the other way and start looking down at the ground. So round about here, I just burn everything. Kill as much speed as possible. That's going to reduce the reheating effects. And I'm keeping the back end as a temporary kind of heat shield. But the main thing is, because that is now the heaviest part of the aircraft, as it goes, and it's got the fins on it, so it wants the fins to be at the back. So as soon as it gets to the point of it's trying too hard to flip over, I just get rid of it. So there you go. But you can see that the reheating, I was thinking, should I put a heat shield on? But as you can see, I go through the reheating phase very, very quickly. So that all worked out rather nicely. They're still scared. I don't know why. Everything's fine. Still worried. But look at that view. Isn't that beautiful? I would just be so happy if I could do space. That explosion was the back end of the rocket hitting the ground very hard. So everything's fine. So then we parachutes. Everything was fine. This is our second mission. This is a rescue mission. If you look very closely, however, you'll see that I actually have 2 cockpits, even though I'm only rescuing 1 Kerbal. A young lady who's got herself stuck in a Kerbal orbit. So it doesn't have to be as big as the moon one. But I've got 2 cockpits here, so I can take a tourist around, because I had a spare tourist. Almost all the other tourists have come in groups of 4 or groups of 6. Or groups of 2, and you can do 2 groups of 2. But I just had this spare tourist, so I designed this thing so that it would have a second cockpit, purely so I could take the tourist along. It does mean that if I ever have 2 rescues in Kerbal orbit at the same time, I can do them both. But, man. So I spent quite a bit of time fiddling with the orbit here, because my preference is to get an orbit that is as close to parallel to my target orbit as I can get. And that took a fair amount of fiddling. I didn't take any account of where the target craft is going to end up, and relative to me when I got to orbit. I also have to go outside the orbit, which means I'm slower, rather than inside when I would be quicker, because the target orbit is actually quite close in. I wouldn't actually be able to be... I would still be in the atmosphere. Spending some time there fiddling with the inclination change I need to do to get to a nicely inclined orbit, but there you go. That worked out quite nicely. And again, I'm fiddling the orbit. I want to try and get the apoapses and periapses lined up. So again, that tells me when I'm nicely parallel. I really could have done with a flight computer on this one, a Kerbal Engineer Redux on this one, because that would have enabled me to keep track of apoapses and periapses much easier, and keep track of how close I am to the target. But, that was pretty close. I actually overshot it a little bit. I probably could have done with slightly, not going quite that far. But now I'm looking for rendezvouses. And I find a pretty good one there. Although I should always keep in mind that just because I've got a nice rendezvous there, that is still subject to me performing the maneuver node properly. And there's the problem. I don't have a computer on this one, and I've just junked a big chunk of my rocket. And so now I don't know how long the maneuver is going to take, and thus I don't know when I should start it, or anything like that. So I've really just got to wing it. And winging it isn't all that easy when you're trying to do a precision maneuver like a rendezvous. So I start out, I think I just said about 10 seconds, and it's like, oh, actually that's quite quick. And I go, oh, that's close enough. And then, no, it's not. It's not close enough at all. So I spent a little bit of time trying to fiddle with it. It's like, no, I'm within 10 kilometers. That's just going to have to do. And then I do some adjustments here. It also amuses me. The map mode just goes mental when you start doing stuff like this. All the orbits just go crazy because of what you're trying to do. I'm spending quite a lot of time trying to draw the prograde marker onto the target marker, because that means you're going very accurately towards the craft. But then I noticed that actually is changing the encounter maneuver, the encounter indicators. So that's telling me that I'm getting quite a good encounter at this point. And so now it's back into flight mode and setting things up and doing rendezvous. And again, you blow the retrograde marker away from you. And so again, I want to position that so that it's on the target indicator, because that way you're minimizing the chance of just completely overshooting and going just past at great distance. But of course, I hit the wrong key, and and I have to do a lot of work again to get back to where I wanted to be. But again, I actually do almost too good a shot. I think I nearly rammed the thing. That could have gone a bit wrong. So there you go. I had a quick check to see whether or not I was over a biome I hadn't got a crew report from, but no. I also had a quick check to see if I was going to fly over one. No. So just bring her over. And that worked out pretty well. Obviously, when I had a choice of two crew compartments to get into, I chose the one that already had someone in it. So I had to go get that one. But there you go. A nice rescue, a free astronaut. She turns out to be an engineer, which means that when she lands, I'm going to have a level 1 pilot, engineer, and scientist. In fact, I've got quite a lot of pilots because I rescued a couple. So that's all pretty good. Again, just killing the speed. I don't particularly care where I land. I'm on the day side, which is all I really cared about at this point. Didn't have quite enough delta V to completely kill my velocity. Obviously, again, massively overspec rocket, but that's because I didn't know how much fiddling I was going to have to do. Doing the same thing here, just keeping that as effectively a heat shield, getting rid of it when it wanted to take too much control over where the rocket was pointing, and so now it's just parachutes. Not the best view from that cockpit, I have to say. When you're parachuting down, it's probably a lot better when you're a jet. And yeah, that all just worked out rather nicely. I think I was a bit concerned about my speed. It was about 6 meters per second. I prefer a little bit slower. And so obviously, get out and do a screenshot. And managed to crash the game hitting the Steam screenshot key. So there you go. And finally, this is a satellite mission to put a polar satellite into orbit. And rather interestingly, I picked just my standard put a satellite into orbit, and I didn't adjust it, I didn't redesign it, didn't do anything. So you can see it's going stupid fast. It's going so fast it in fact reheats. And could clearly have done with adjusting the solid rocket boosters so they weren't so completely stupid. And that would have saved me, that would have made the upper stages more efficient. That would have had a better thrust to weight ratio. Now, the more observant amongst you will have noticed that I'd completely forgotten to do anything about the fact that this is a polar satellite, and I'm going to have to do a massive inclination change. And I realised this as soon as I hit, space to start moving. I went, oh right, I'm doing this all wrong. But never mind. These are ridiculously overspec'd rockets. So I was going to see if I was going to just be able to do it by hand. I did put a flight computer on this. That was clever of me. So I'm just getting myself into an orbit. Didn't really care what, just as long as it was an orbit. So you can always adjust from there. So I had a quick go at seeing just how much delta V it would take. And the answer is loads. So then I effectively decided to do a bielliptic transfer where, by going very far out, and originally the plan was to go all the way out to the orbit that I needed, but I actually get a moon encounter because the moon gets in the way, which is a tiny bit aggravating. So I have to do another one which doesn't go quite far out enough because I don't want to hit the moon. And I don't want to be influenced by the moon. But that means that when I have to do that, I need to get that far out anyway. But because that apoapsis is very far out compared to my periapsis, my speed's going to be very low, and therefore it's going to be much less delta V to change. And because I'm an idiot, round about here, I wanted to test a time warp. No, slightly after this. This is me. I need to get that out first. I am getting ahead of myself, is what I'm doing. So simple enough. Just make sure I keep changing the maneuver node as it alters, and ease my way in. But then I have to remember, I can never remember which way I am going around. So I said I will time warp a bit and see where I go. And instead of hitting the time warp keys, I hit the Z key, which completely screws up my orbit again. So I have to go fix that. And I've still got that last orbital stage attached to the back of this thing, so it's very, very clunky and difficult to maneuver. But so I bring myself back in so that I can get back to doing what I wanted to do. And so you can see it takes a lot less delta V, and I can in fact combine pushing my periapsis up to where it needs to be and correcting my inclination relatively easily. And that's less delta V that it would have taken to do just the inclination change. So I get rid of that, but it's okay because I have a flight computer on this, so I know how long the burn's going to be, which means I know when to do it. It's all just brilliant. Kerbal Engineer Redux is the best thing ever. And there's the moon down in the bottom right there being irritating, getting in the way. Probably this polar satellite at some point, if I don't just terminate it, will at some point just hit the moon and get warped off somewhere. So there you go. You know, it was actually a very easy maneuver to do. Really nicely. It just came together really nicely. And then I had a quick check to see whether or not I was close enough as far as the contract was concerned. I was not. It was just, you know, I thought I'd check. And that just means I need to do one final maneuver here, which is coming up any moment now. And that's me getting it, and I just have to wait for the obligatory 10 seconds, and then boom, done. So that's 3 missions done quite quickly. That's what I've been up to. They're all missions I've done before, so I didn't really want to do them in detail. But I thought just to let you know what I've been getting up to. So if you've been enjoying these videos, hit like and subscribe. You can find Nearly Enough Dice. We're on YouTube, and we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook, and we're at nearlyenoughdice.com. And until next time, reach for the stars.